Today, we will witness an exceptional story of an intellectual debate that will shake minds and hearts. A young 18-year-old Muslim woman from Chile will engage in a profound discussion with an atheist professor on the existence of God. This debate will not be driven by anger or emotion, but by simple, sharp logic and irrefutable arguments. In a prestigious university in Santiago, Chile, a highly respected philosophy professor, Dr. Esteban Morales, known for his sharp critical mind and militant atheism, has been teaching for years that God is merely a concept invented by humans. In every class, he challenges his students to prove the existence of God, and so far, no one has succeeded in countering his arguments. But who would have thought that his greatest challenge would come from a young woman? In another part of the city, a young Muslim woman named Leila Fernandez is heading to the university with her father, Kamal Fernandez, a Muslim engineer. Leila is an exceptionally intelligent young woman, fascinated from a very young age by questions about the universe, life, and religion. She grew up in an environment where Islam was seen as a religion of knowledge and wisdom. That day, her father invites her to attend an open lecture hosted by Dr. Esteban Morales, titled God, Myth, or Reality. Kamal knew the debate would be difficult, but he wanted Leila to see how science and faith can coexist. The hall was filled with students and intellectuals eager to hear the professor's arguments. Dr. Morales took the stage and began his speech confidently. My dear friends, for centuries, people have believed in God. But what scientific proof do we have? None. All of this is simply a tradition passed down from generation to generation. Knowledge of the universe does not require the existence of God. If God truly exists, he must be proven through scientific methods, not just by faith. A silence fell over the room. Some nodded in agreement, while others seemed hesitant. After an hour of scientific arguments denying the existence of God, Dr. Morales issued a challenge. If anyone here can prove to me, with irrefutable logic, that God exists, I will admit my mistake. No one dared raise a hand. Students exchanged glances, some trying to formulate arguments in their minds, but fearing the professor's formidable intellect. Then suddenly, a hand went up. All eyes turned to a young woman, 18 years old, sitting in the middle of the hall. Dr. Morales smiled with a hint of mockery. Well, we have our youngest participant. What is your name, young lady? Leila stood up and replied confidently. My name is Leila Fernandez, Professor. Dr. Morales chuckled lightly. All right, Leila, you want to prove that God exists? Leila nodded. Yes, Professor, and I'm going to do it with a glass of milk. A puzzled silence filled the room. Some students laughed, thinking it was a joke, but Leila's expression remained serious. Her father smiled proudly. Dr. Morales raised an eyebrow skeptically. Milk? How can a simple glass of milk prove the existence of God? Leila smiled gently. I'll explain, but first, may I have a glass of milk? Someone from the audience, intrigued, quickly went to fetch one from the cafeteria. Leila took the glass and held it up for everyone to see. Professor, do you agree that this milk has an extremely complex composition? It contains proteins, calcium, vitamins, and many other essential nutrients? Dr. Morales nodded. That's a scientific fact. Leila continued. And do you agree that this milk comes from cows? Obviously, Dr. Morales answered. Now, logically, where does this milk come from? Leila asked. From the mammary glands of the cow, Dr. Morales replied. Well, let's go a step further, Leila said. Cows produce milk from the grass and water they consume. But Professor, have you ever wondered? Why is the grass green and the water transparent, while the milk it produces is white and rich in nutrients? Silence fell again. Some students looked at the professor with curiosity. It's a biological process, he replied after a pause. Leila continued. How can a cow, which has no intelligence, produce milk perfectly suited for both human and animal consumption. If all this were the result of chance, how could such a precise and beneficial process have developed? She paused for a moment, then concluded, "If you found a glass of milk on your table, you would assume someone had placed it there, wouldn't you? It would be absurd to think it appeared on its own. Just as a simple glass of milk requires someone to pour it, how could such a complex biological system exist without a creator? This is proof of a higher intelligence that designed everything with inimitable perfection, and that intelligence is God." The room remained silent, stunned. For the first time, Dr. Esteban Morales seemed speechless. Leila's father watched the scene with pride. His daughter had just presented a simple yet irrefutable argument. The professor took a deep breath and admitted, "Interesting, Leila. Very interesting. You've surpassed us, my young friend." Whispers ran through the room. Some students, previously skeptical, now seemed to be thinking deeply. Dr. Morales, though visibly shaken, kept his composure. "Your argument is interesting, but it doesn't prove the existence of God. What you call a miracle is merely the result of natural laws shaped by billions of years of evolution. It's natural selection, not the work of a creator." Leila remained calm and replied, "Professor, if I gave you random letters and asked you to arrange them into a perfect book, how long would it take?" Dr. Morales laughed. "It depends on the number of letters, but of course, it would take a long time." Leila continued, "And if I threw those letters in the air, would they land perfectly arranged to form a readable book?" The professor shook his head. "Of course not, that's impossible." She smiled. "Then how can you believe that billions of atoms in the human body and in the universe arranged themselves perfectly by chance?" Silence returned. Even the students who had laughed earlier seemed to be questioning their convictions. One professor whispered to his neighbor, "This young girl is far smarter than her age suggests." Dr. Morales, slightly annoyed, asked, "Leila, if God really exists, why is there so much suffering in the world? Why the war, poverty, disease, and injustice?" Leila replied gently, "Professor, have you ever been in an operating room?" Dr. Morales nodded. "When a surgeon operates on a patient, that patient feels pain, right? Yet the doctor continues, because it is necessary for healing." She paused. "In the same way, God sometimes allows suffering, not out of indifference, but because there is a greater wisdom behind it, like a parent who lets their child fall to learn how to walk." Dr. Morales remained silent. Leila continued, "If a father never let his child fall, the child would never learn to walk on their own. Similarly, God allows us to go through trials to strengthen us." She paused again, then continued, "God gave us free will and the ability to choose between good and evil, so we can learn, grow, and gain wisdom. If we were forced to do only good, how would we be different from programmed machines without real purpose or meaning in our actions? The beauty of choosing good lies in the fact that it comes from us, not from an outside force." A quiet settled over the room. Some students, previously skeptical, seemed to be in deep thought. A few exchanged glances and their expressions softened. Even Dr. Morales, usually firm in his position, appeared for a moment unable to speak. In a corner of the room, an old man with a white beard gently wiped his beard and murmured, "Glory to God, this young girl is so wise." But Dr. Esteban was not ready to give up. He crossed his arms, narrowed his eyes slightly, and said in a dry tone, "Very well, Leila, if God exists, why doesn't he show himself? If I could see him, touch him, or speak to him directly, I would believe in him." Leila smiled slightly and replied, "Professor, do you have a brain?" The room suddenly filled with hushed whispers and muffled laughter. Some students covered their mouths, while Dr. Esteban let out a small laugh and said, "Of course I have a brain, Leila." She then asked calmly, But have you ever seen it? Dr. Esteban's smile faded. He hesitated for a moment. The audience held their breath, sensing that this was a crucial moment. Leila continued in a firm voice. Have you ever touched it or spoken directly to it? Dr. Esteban fell silent for a long time, lost in thought. Finally, he sighed and spoke in a soft voice. No, I've never seen my brain, but I know it exists because I can think and act like a human being. Leila smiled triumphantly. That's how we know that God exists. Maybe we can't see him directly, but we can feel his presence in every heartbeat, in the air we breathe. His existence is as real as the thoughts in our minds and the life flowing through our veins. Just like the brain, we don't need to see it to know that it exists. The room erupted into applause. Some students who had been skeptical seemed to agree now, while others wiped away tears. Dr. Esteban sat down, calm, his gaze thoughtful. For the first time in his life, he had no ready answer. He looked at Leila with newfound respect, but before he could speak again, a voice rose from the back of the room. Come on, Professor, don't let a young girl beat you. It's just wordplay. All eyes turned to a man standing near the entrance, dressed in a black suit, his expression stern and unyielding. It was Dr. Miguel Ramirez, a colleague of Dr. Esteban, a renowned scientist and one of the most vocal atheists at the university. Attention in the room shifted. Leila turned her gaze toward him, her eyes filled with quiet confidence. She knew the debate was far from over. There were still so many unanswered questions. Dr. Miguel stepped forward, his sharp eyes gleaming with skepticism. Very well, young lady. You seem very sure of your arguments, but before we continue, may I ask you, do you believe Islam is a religion of love? Leila answered without hesitation. Of course, Professor. Islam is a religion of love, mercy, and justice. Dr. Miguel chuckled doubtfully. Love and mercy? If Islam is truly a religion of peace, why do we see so much violence and bloodshed committed in its name? How do you justify the wars waged under its banner? If your faith is so pure, why do some use it to justify the harm done to others? Whispers spread through the room. Some students nodded in agreement, while others waited with anticipation. Leila remained silent for a moment, then took a deep breath and answered calmly. Professor, do you believe knives are useful? Dr. Miguel frowned. What do you mean? She repeated. Are knives useful tools? He hesitated, then nodded. Yes, of course. They're used for cooking, for cutting. They're indispensable in everyday life. Leila smiled slightly. But, Professor, can a knife also be used to hurt someone? Dr. Miguel's expression changed, as if he now understood where she was going with this. She continued, if someone uses a knife to commit a crime, should we blame the knife or the person who misused it? Silence filled the room again. Some students exchanged glances, whispering about how powerful her argument was. Dr. Miguel pursed his lips but said nothing immediately. Some use science to create weapons of mass destruction. Should we blame science itself for the devastation it causes? Dr. Miguel sighed loudly but didn't respond. Islam is a religion that teaches peace, but some distort its teachings for selfish ends, just as some abuse science, technology, and even politics. The problem isn't Islam itself, but how humans choose to use or misuse it. The room remained silent. Some students who had been skeptical seemed to reflect deeply, while others appeared convinced. Dr. Miguel took a deep breath, as though preparing to refute her arguments, but his expression changed. It was no longer anger, but something closer to contemplation. Finally, he spoke, his voice quieter. I understand your logic, but I have one last question. If God really exists, why doesn't he prevent evil? Why does he allow humans to choose evil? Leila's gaze softened, and her voice became gentle but firm. Professor, have you ever seen a parent teach their child to walk? Dr. Miguel raised his eyebrows slightly. Yes, of course. Do parents always hold their child to stop them from falling? He shook his head. No, they let the child try on their own. Leila smiled. Why does he let them fall? Dr. Miguel remained silent for a moment, then replied, because if the child never falls, they will never learn to walk properly. Leila nodded. That's how God teaches us. He didn't create us like machines with no choice. He gave us the freedom to choose between good and evil, because it's only through this choice that we can truly understand the value of good itself. The murmurs in the room quieted. The students, once skeptical, seemed transformed. Some displayed astonishment, others deep thought. But Dr. Miguel was not yet ready to surrender. But Leila, he said, if God is truly full of love, why does he punish those who do not believe in him? Some students nodded, approving the question. It was a classic inquiry in theological debates. Leila remained calm. Professor, are you a good teacher? Dr. Miguel gave a slight smile. Of course. Do you give exams to your students? Yes, it's part of the educational system. If students don't study, don't make any effort, and fail the exam, will you give them a perfect grade? Dr. Miguel shook his head. Of course not. If they don't study, they don't deserve a good grade. Leila smiled. Life is like that, Professor. God gives us tests and provides all the necessary instructions for us to succeed. But if someone chooses to ignore his instructions, would it be fair for them to receive paradise in the same way as those who have struggled to do good? Silence fell again. Some students seemed to finally grasp the essence of Leila's argument. Suddenly, a student from the back of the room exclaimed, "My God, this makes so much sense." Dr. Miguel took a deep breath. For the first time in this debate, he seemed without an answer. His expression was unreadable, but there was a mix of admiration, confusion, and a hint of questioning. Before he could speak, another student, Fernando, suddenly stood up. I still have a question. Attention returned to Fernando, a young man with curly hair, who declared confidently, Your arguments are logical, but one thing troubles me. God is merciful and just, but how can he forgive sins? How can he allow us to enter paradise despite our mistakes? Leila smiled gently. Fernando, have you ever loved someone? He furrowed his brows, surprised by this response. Of course, but what does that have to do with my question? When you love someone, do you want them to love you because they truly know you, or because they are forced to? Fernando remained silent, beginning to understand. If God revealed himself directly to everyone, where would faith or free will be? Everyone would believe in him, but not by choice. God wants us to love him sincerely, not out of obligation. The atmosphere in the room shifted from attention to deep reflection. Even Dr. Miguel, who had been listening intently, asked, So you think that God wants humans to choose him freely, out of love? Leila replied, Yes. God lets us seek the truth. He has placed signs in us, in the universe, in his sacred books, but it is up to us to see them. Dr. Miguel sighed. I've spent years seeking answers, trying to prove that God doesn't exist, but your arguments today have made me think like never before. The students' faces were full of astonishment. Dr. Esteban, who had been debating Leila from the start, smiled. I didn't expect this discussion to make me think so deeply, he replied. Islam isn't just a debate, Professor. It's about the heart of our relationship with God and using our reason to seek the truth. Silence settled in again. No one wanted to ask more questions, not out of fear, but because everyone was reflecting on new ideas. At the end of the debate, many students approached Leila. Some wanted to continue the discussion, others simply to thank her for opening their eyes to a new perspective. Fernando, who had challenged her, admitted, I don't know if I can believe in God right away, but I will search for answers more seriously. Leila smiled warmly. Seeking the truth is a beautiful journey, Fernando. I pray that you find it." Dr. Miguel left with a distant look on his face. His intellectual arrogance had vanished. Something in him had changed. As for Leila, she had accomplished her mission: to convey the truth with gentleness, love, and logic. Like the glass of milk she had used as an example earlier, the truth is clear. Only those who truly wish to see it will understand its sanctity. This story is a message about the courage to speak the truth, the kindness in calling others to faith, and the importance of using both reason and heart in the search for answers. May we all learn from it and grow closer to the truth.